It's that time again. It's the podcast that takes your personal and professional life to a whole new level. Whether you're selling a product, selling a service, or selling yourself, one thing is for sure. You're always selling for life. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Selling for Life podcast, sponsored by Quirks Parts, a world of parts with a personal touch. This podcast is about more than just selling stuff. We think if you stick around, you just might get a lot out of it. I'm Steve, and today I am joined by the owner of the company, Al Alexander, back again in the house. What's up, Al? I am with you on a remote. You're on your cell phone, if I can get it out. How you doing, Al?
Yeah, I'm on my cell phone, man. How you guys doing?
Good. How is the weather down in the Bahamas?
Dude, it is so balmy.
I bet. Oh, my gosh. And I heard you went swimming with the sharks today and fed some great whites. That's awesome.
Yeah, I said to my wife, take my wife, please.
I'm just kidding. You're in Newfane, New York, where it's 20 degrees.
20 degrees and snow on the ground, ice on my porch steps. I had actually salt today, for goodness sake.
Oh, we're at that point. Yep, you're right. I could probably have to buy some myself and get my sidewalk and all that done, too. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So, dreams of
we
the
do
Bahamas.
because we love our family.
Right. And, our daydreams of the Bahamas, they'll just getting there is just going to have to wait. It's time for our topic of the day, and the topic is self-awareness.
Do you know what that means?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's being aware of yourself.
Heck yeah, bro.
Self-awareness. I have an idea of where you're going, and I'll tell you what, it has helped my life tremendously kind of be aware of where I'm at in certain areas. So why don't you tell us more about what you know about it?
Well, I mean, self-awareness, just like you use the phrase to define itself, but being aware of your feelings, being aware of your personality, of your character, being aware of yourself. I would attribute it to probably the key to success in anything in life. I would find that if we did a survey, which I think they have, the most highly successful people have an extreme self-awareness. You just can't go through life oblivious. You just can't. If you are oblivious going through life, you usually don't have a good outcome to some things. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. So absence of the heart. Ignorance is not bliss.
Ignorance is bliss? Wait.
Ignorance is not bliss. Right?
Hold on. Ignorance is not bliss.
Well, they say ignorance is bliss, but ignorance is not bliss.
Who says ignorance is bliss?
I don't know. Whoever it is probably dead.
He got hit by a train.
Right. He didn't know it was coming.
Ignorance is bliss. Oh, yeah. He got hit by a car. Oh, yeah. That's right. He fell off a cliff.
So how does this translate to sales or starting a business or anything like that?
Well, let me give you a few examples. So a lot of folks talk about self-awareness. Again, it's not an unusual concept. It's not my concept in general, but I find that when I was young, one of the best areas that I understood was not only my own feelings and how I feel about something, my own personality and character, and how it affects my decisions, because I am aware of that. I kind of step outside myself. The other aspect of self-awareness is being aware of what you look like to others. Mm-hmm. Right? That's kind of the next level. And that in itself, I don't think people talk about as much. So it might be a new concept to those listeners out there. It might be new to you. But just because you know yourself doesn't mean that you understand how people see you.
Right.
How they receive what's being expressed, mm-hmm. how they perceive your character, how they perceive mm-hmm. what you think is your feelings and personality. So I would say that is the hinge pin to success. What do you think? Do you think you live in an island with nothing around you and no one else interacting with you? No, you live with people. And in Selling for Life podcast, this is kind of a perfect topic for today, because you're always in your home and in your family, whether you're a parent, whether you're a husband, wife, you're a CEO at a company, you're a business owner, you're in sales, or you're a receptionist, whatever you do in the company that you work in, you're kind of interacting with people around you, and how you express yourself is important. How you understand how people receive that expression is even more important. I think of a 90-10 rule. It's 90% more important how people receive you than the 10% of what you actually said.
Is this kind of a covert, indirect way of reaching me, Al?
Well, hold on a second. Your wife gave me a call yesterday.
Is this a podcast for the general audience, or did you sit down with the guys here and say, hey, we need to reach Steve about how he's perceived here?
Hold on a second. Steve, if this is hitting home, buddy, let's open it up.
It sure is. Well, let me share a little bit of those who don't know me. I like to goof around a lot, and I'm very kind of a happy-go-lucky guy, and I kind of a big target on me because people find it easy. I'm an easy target, and so I think about that a lot. I consider myself a good worker and take myself very seriously, but the way I act oftentimes is the exact opposite, and I think that's a form of insecurity to a degree. I don't like a lot of attention, which a lot of people would say, oh, yeah, right, and roll their eyes. But here at work, the way people perceive me, I think, is much different than how I perceive myself. And it's something I got to work on. I don't want to be considered the goofball at work or the guy that can't be trusted when I know that I can be and that I do a good job. And so that definitely affects me professionally. Is that kind of like what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. You're aware of your own feelings.
Mm-hmm.
You're aware of your own character. You're aware of your own personality, in a way, because I know you well. So you're aware of those things, and you're becoming even more and more aware of how people view that, right? Now, I don't want to get on this thin line of manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
I want to stay over to the genuineness. So when you are awakening to the self-awareness, when you are awakening to the concept that how you're perceived, how the communication comes across the lines to others is more important than anything, you start making some changes because you realize that you're causing outcomes.
Right.
You're causing, what you're describing as your reputation almost, right?
Yes.
And I find that in myself years ago, I had to kind of change that. I was always late, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one ever took me seriously. I was always the nice guy, so no one, everyone walked all over me. I never accomplished anything, couldn't get anything done when it came to people. So I had to, I took a personality test called the DISC profile, and I had just a high interaction with people kind of rating, but I had this really, really low dominance rating. So, man, no wonder why people don't take advantage, no wonder why people take advantage of me. I'm not dominant in a way, right? So I recognized that. I was self-aware that I didn't have that, so I started, kind of discovering how to create that in myself. Mm-hmm. And some changes of my life created that, and understanding I had to be certain things to certain people to get certain successes, which, led to leading people in a way. And, I don't have to be a tyrant or anything to lead people, but I do it in a servant way, or an example or an inspirational way in some way. But I think I'm perceived completely differently now, 15, 20 years later. Once I became aware of changing that, it took a long time, but I'm completely, viewed differently now. My expression comes across, and things usually get done 90% more than they did 15, 20 years ago, because I'm intentional about it. I don't know if that makes sense to you at all.
Yeah, and they're changes that had to be made because they were not good traits. They were not benefiting you or benefiting those around you. And as a result, you had to make conscious efforts to go about everything differently.
Yeah, and it didn't change me as a core. You having certain, you're talented. You do well and are diligent and are loyal, to the people you work with and work for. That's absolutely evident. And the people who you work for see that, right? You're suggesting that your peers are perceiving you differently than, say, your bosses are. Is that right?
I think, yes, to a degree. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because I know that my bosses trust me with some a lot of responsibility. They wouldn't spend as much money as they did to send me to Tennessee on a business trip that they would if they didn't. Whereas probably the employees that I work next to, if for some reason they were put in a position to trust me with that, I'm not sure they would.
Yeah. So, I mean, you consciously make some efforts that are different, right, with maybe your bosses than with your peers. And I don't know what it is. And I don't think it would change the way you enjoy life. I think it would make it more fulfilling if you figured out what that perception is that creates that reputation that you actually don't have within yourself, right? There's a disconnect, right?
Yeah.
And I think everybody goes through that. I think the ones that come faster to it find a fast track to success more than others, because you get stuck into a certain mode and you keep on grinding in yourself when it really is outside. It's really how it's taken rather than how you meant it. And that's the thing. People have good intentions, but good intentions get you nowhere. I think that's where the nice guys finish last concept comes from. It's not about I intend for this to be this way or that way. It's how did it get received, right?
Right.
Relationships that are long-term marriages can break down. People see divorces happen 20, 30, 40 years into the relationship. Like, how the heck did that happen? Well, I'll tell you why. No one ever dealt with how things came across.
Right.
Right. They were all locked up on what they thought and what they felt. And they're aware of their feelings. People are aware of their own feelings. People are aware of their own personality and their own character traits.
Right.
The problem is they're never caring about how it comes across to others because they want to be validated. I think it's a little ego issue, sometimes. Through that, a lot of our core values speak to that, because humility has to happen for you to care about how other people perceive you, no matter what you meant. You understand? Integrity comes into play as well in our core values at our work in the same way, because how you're perceived and how things are internal should match up. That's an integral thing. There's a lot of things that we can kind of get into in offshoots of this self-awareness and the awareness of self, right? But ultimately, I really believe this is the key to success. It's the key to success in actual sales, because if you have something you're trying to influence others about, how they receive it is 100%, the most important thing, right?
Right.
I have a great product and I believe in it, and it comes across that way, and it equally and genuinely, does, then great. Usually things match up. But I have a great product and I believe in it, but it comes across at all, opposite of what I'm trying to do, well, then I have no success, right? So intentions mean nothing. Perception is everything. So what do you think, buddy? Does that help at all?
Yeah, again, was this just meant for me? It does hit home, and I think, honestly, it probably hits home with a lot of people, because a lot of people put on a facade almost. They act a certain way, and a lot of it has to do with pain they've had from their past, the way they were brought up, experiences they've had, and as a result, they almost have a defense mechanism, and it gets in the way of being able to, like you said, project a certain thing or be a certain way that will be received better by people around them. So you just got to find out what it is. You got to find out what it is. Like, where is this coming from? Why do I act like this? Why do I do these things? And that's, of course, the self-awareness. evaluating yourself, evaluating why you get so upset when somebody asks you a simple question, or why you avoid somebody in the hallway that you don't want to talk to, and why you don't want to talk to them, all those things. And then what you're saying is getting to the point where you can evaluate all that, be self-aware, then you can start making the steps towards correcting the things and then being much more productive.
Yeah, and the key is not just, again, if you set your sights on something, you want to accomplish a communication, you want to accomplish a goal with collaboration of others, whatever it is, right? The most important part is really not even just understanding how you work through life, but how the people around you that you need to kind of bring along with you or influence in a way, how they perceive that, right? And how they perceive your communication, how they perceive your actions and choices, how they perceive what you're trying to get done. And that's the difference between just your internal awareness and your awareness and how it looks to others. And it can't be done in a manipulative way. It has to be integral, because what I'm suggesting is that inside and outside have to match. You know what I mean? So the more you go towards the character, that, good character building and the intentionality of integrity, even with sacrifice involved, that matches more, right? So I'm a boisterous person. I have big ideas, look from 30,000 foot views, all about inspiration, all about like driving forward. And I understand that sometimes my perception or how I'm perceived is basically like unrealistic, always promoting myself, but inside I'm like, hey, let's do this together. It's for everybody. And hey, let's believe in something that is impossible so we can do it, but it comes across as like, that's so freaking unrealistic, I understand that about myself. So I make provision and intentionality to almost sometimes self-disclose that I get what I'm saying is this, right? It looks like this to you, but just come along with me for a moment while I build this journey out with you and what it really looks like. So just me acknowledging that I can be perceived a certain way sometimes answers, that perception of others, and asks permission for me to have a little bit of leeway to completely explain myself so it's received correctly. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So if you got a situation, let's say you have an idea. I always like to bring it back to marriage, right? I have an idea that I want to do something, and I'm all gung-ho about it, right? And I present it to my wife, and my wife looks at me like, you're an idiot, right? Anybody ever look at you like you're an idiot?
Mm-hmm.
And you had days or weeks of prep, and you even thought about the courage of bringing it up and the excitement of going, and it gets completely shot down with one of those, like, she didn't even have to say you're an idiot. She just looks at you, yeah. Right? Mm. You ever had that experience at all?
Yes, I'm married, yes.
I'm married, I know. My point is just that. That is the basic core of what I'm saying. Who knows you better than your wife?
Right.
Doesn't she know? You know what I mean? Doesn't she have enough respect or whatever we put in there? Doesn't she have enough whatever, to just sit with me and come with me on this one, right? Well, no. You're being, to her perception, you're an idiot, And again, my hang-ups come across in the way I perceive, or the way I'm perceived by most people is, like I said, I'm perceived as, boy, that's unrealistic. That's not, I'm not going to go on that journey with you, or no way. Are you crazy? So I know that. So I have to prepare for all those things. I have chosen to intentionally do that. This is what stops most people and why you do not succeed. Some people are mad that they have to go through all that for the sake of others perceiving them correctly. Now, I look at that once I realize that, and I'm like, holy crap, I've done that for a long time. Why can't people just know, or just come along with me, or just, care enough about me, or respect me enough to, well, duh, because that's the way life is. So if you want to succeed in something, if you want to attain something, if you want to collaborate or grab somebody's inspiration and drag them along with you, it isn't about you. It isn't about what you believe and what all the things that are inside of you driving you forward, because they don't care about that. They have their own things, right? How do you get the permission from someone else in that whole, experience is like, you know what? I got to care more about them, their perception and how they view it than my plan, right? And we talked about in the last few weeks talked about like overcoming objections and things like that. And we talked about how it's not doing something to somebody, it's for them. It's the same concept. So even in your self-awareness, you should be aware about how you affect others, how they receive more than how you intend, because it isn't about you in life. It's about them. Mm-hmm. That's like Jesus speak right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you hear the kids yelling in the background?
I can. I'm very aware of your children.
They're doing their chores right now.
That's
getting
awesome.
ready for Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they're good at it too. They're like an army.
That's a perfect time for me then to bring us to the next part of the podcast, and that is message to the company. Day before Thanksgiving. Al, what would you like to say to the employees of Conequip?
I would like to say that I am grateful for you, each one of you. And if I could put this into action and just start naming off everybody's name. Do you mind, Steve? Should I start now? Or?
Go for it.
Thank you to Ben Krentz, Josh Holt, Gary Young, Nick, and Ben Clark, and our buddy Adam, and Brian Branch, and Adam Bailey, who I met there first off, and Garrett Hard, our homegirl Danielle. Thanks to Anthony and Molly and Shelby. Thanks to Adam Gow, our new receptionist, OT, Alicia, and also Chris Murray, and we got Jared Wagner. Thanks to Jocelyn and Aaron and Cam and April, Emily, and who's over there? Oh, Ariel, Sincere, and Laura, and Haley. Think about Reggie and Sheila. Big shout out to Kayla. Jill and Joyce and Jackie, and Roberta's in the house. Brandy. Thanks to Susan Pope, she's new too. We got JT, Justin Tatlow. And thanks to Jared Wagner, David Wagner. Thanks to Big Chris, and thanks to Kevin, my Lebanese brother, and Mauricio. Thanks to Travis. And big thanks out to Steve-O, the Italian, Joe, Ryan Luce. Thanks to Kyle, and you know what? I almost forgot. My homie over in New Fame and in sometimes in Elma, or mostly in Elma, the Big Bob. And I think I got everybody.
Let's hope.
I think I did. What?
Let's hope you did. Because if you did, you might not hear about it. They might not listen. Okay, that was pretty impressive. Really, really impressive. Well, that's awesome. And that does it for our 18th Selling for Life podcast. Thanks for joining us. You can check out our website, sellingforlife.com. Leave a quick message on the website and let us know you heard the podcast. We're love to get your feedback on it. So until next week, remember, whether you're selling pool supplies or you're trying to convince your little one it will be okay when you let go of the handlebars of the bike they're learning to ride on, one thing is for sure, Al.
You're always selling for life.